There's a lot more rubber on this track, or it's in a certainly different situation to what it was.
That's a lot more oil on it, too. Now, in fairness to the Ferrari engine department, the word from the pits is that Michael Schumacher was stuck in 6th gear. That's why his race ended. Eddie Irvine had what was obviously an engine problem.
I thought it looked a bit like Schumacher had an engine problem to me. It didn't like he was stuck in any gear to me.
I'm not making any comment. They said like it was a gearbox. I believe. Great moment it would be for McLaren if they could come back to the podium, perhaps even the top step. More pit stops still to come. John Alesi obviously on a one-stop strategy. Mika Häkkinen, I anticipate, would have one more, and he couldn't get that. In a few years, inflation in Formula One has driven that budget to be competitive up to $90 million. But that, of course, includes a launch share. You see the gap from the second-place car of Berger to the third-place car of Häkkinen. But keep in mind, Berger has a pit stop coming up, and it may come in the next lap. Häkkinen with Alesi just behind him. Cop's corner, and the car simply snapped around on him. Keep in mind, a year ago, David Coulthard had the same problem at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza and went off twice. Once on the warm-up lap, and then once in the race at the exact same point on the racetrack, the Ascari curve. Ride with Mika Häkkinen.
Yeah, I mean, you have to realize, of course, what happens is that when the wheel gets loose, when the wheel bearing starts to give up, it hasn't totally given up, but you get a wobble on, and therefore the brake does not work as efficiently because the wheel has a movement in it. The whole bearing is shaking, and therefore the brake isn't as efficient as it would be. So the other three are efficient, and that one doesn't work. Yeah, well, it's the way to get there.
Now Alesi closing up again on Häkkinen. It was 3.1, it is now 2.9. Right hand doing the shifting, left hand nice and easy on the steering wheel. Remarkable how calm and collected these guys are in the cockpit. Very little white knuckling going on. Just handle the wheel like a baby.
Of course, to the driver who's sitting there, he has so much time to think about things. It becomes a rhythm. It's when you get back on the road afterwards and find yourself doing 50 miles an hour.
We're almost in a cruise mode now with just 4 laps to go of the Grand Prix, but believe me, they are still working incredibly hard. The demands, the physical demands of driving a Grand Prix car are absolutely immense. These guys are going to have pulse rates of around about 160 beats per minute as they cope with not just the mental but the physical stress. It's very physical driving these cars. Now when Mika Häkkinen gets on the brakes of his car, he's going to be generating a force of 3.5, 4G. Without the seat belts, he'll be hurled out of the car. Coming through this sweeping section into Beckett's 150, 130 down through the gears. Particularly tricky here actually because this slows down all the way. So listen to the engine as he comes out. Into 5th, into 6th, all the way down. Top speed still 185, 190 miles an hour, down a couple of gears, through Stowe Corner in 4th gear, being hurled around all the time, and this is why the drivers need drink bottles, because they can lose up to 1.5 litres, 2 litres of fluid in a hot Grand Prix. It's not particularly hot here at Silverstone, but it's important to replace it, and that's what Damon had here. And for Damon, it's going to be a time of considering what might have been, I'm sure. I don't honestly believe he would have had a chance to win here today. That start really put paid to that. He was not going to come back from the deficit that he had to Jacques Villeneuve, and it was about 20 seconds before Hill had his problem. But of course what he would have done is probably finished in 2nd place, and that could have scored 6 precious points, whereas as it is, Villeneuve's going to go home with another 10 points, and that's going to bring him up from 38 points to 48 points in the championship, and that's just 15 behind Damon Hill. So for example, one more problem, one more non-finish with another win for Villeneuve, and the championship all of a sudden is going to look incredible.